Welcome into 11 Personnel presented by Port Royal Plants. I'm Nick Roush. As always, joined by one Adam Luckettt as we get you set for Saturday's significant matchup between Kentucky and the Missouri Tigers. Um, I I don't really want to spend more time on Tennessee Luckett, but there might be a few things we got to clean up.
Yeah, let's just talk about the elephant in the room here.
Okay, let's do it.
We heard from Mark Stoops on Monday. Basically, get it fixed or get lost. I joked on the football podcast, Mark Stoops is not going to fire himself. Who do we think he's talking to? So Nick, what has to happen these last four games to get to that where we're covering another offensive coordinator search?
Well, the thing was too is Rich Scangarello wasn't. He's not pressing the panic button. He's not overreacting.
But
They're not
Rich
thinking.
Gangarello has taught us not to listen to a word he says in these press conferences.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it was a little concerning though when he said that we knew they were going to get downhill in the run game, but we just wanted to run it anyway. It's like why would that be the game plan? Like what made you think that was a good idea? So I don't know. Average 24 points a game. That doesn't feel like you're asking for much, right? Because this Missouri game feels like a race to 20. Uh, the Louisville game might be a race to 20 as well. So like if you average 24 points a game, there's a dud in there against Georgia. You probably scoring what you should get to 35 by Vanderbilt, but I think that's where you're at. And really, in all honesty, you need to get to 8 wins. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a necessity because the offensive talent dictates. Like you're not asking them to do a whole lot, and you've got some good players to play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you finish 7-5 or 6-6, I think
That's a definite.
I'm not going to say definite, but you're definitely in a gray. I think he's in a gray area right now, personally. Like we've seen Mark Stoops pull the plug when things getting bad, and when we really didn't think he would. Like the Dawson one, people were like, "Well, it's just 1 year. You can't make a coordinator change." He did it, and then with the last one, it was Eddie Grant has been here for so long. He just like turned the offense around in made something out of nothing in 2019. You've been they've been together so long. He's not gonna pull the plug on him, and he did. So to me, he's shown in the past he's not afraid uh, to pull this plug. There's just this one's different because of like the pending QB transfer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like they got to get a QB in here next year, and if you pull the plug, you'd almost have to have a guy right away to come in here and
He
find
would
a transfer and
right. It's like you don't go entering the portal unless you know where you're going to end up. I don't think you can pull the like barring disaster.
yeah.
Like if it's 6-6 instead of 7-5. Like let's
But
say you only beat Vanderbilt
mhm.
and your hands are kind of forced. That's the only real scenario I see where you pull the plug on Rich without having a successor lined up and a quarterback ready to bring in as well.
Yeah, and I also think like there's gonna be like there's not just gonna be 8 QBs in the portal that everybody's fighting over. There's gonna be a lot of guys in the portal that can play, so you're gonna have options there with quarterback. But yeah, I just you bring like he's got like they need to win this. If they don't win and they go down there and score 14 points, Nick, like it's gonna get bad around here.
Well, because like I'll bring up just my worst case scenario before we get your benchmarks that you want to see over the final four games. I'm not going to write about it because I don't want to put that juju out there. But to say it out loud, you can see I can very easily, and it's not just me being a jaded Kentucky fan. Kentucky kind of is what they are right now. They're a
Yeah,
sloppy offensive football team that makes a lot of mistakes, and you could see a scenario where the defense keeps them in this game. The offense doesn't do a ton, but they're in position to win. They make a late turnover. You lose to Missouri. Vanderbilt, you score 24 points and a win to get bowl eligible. And then you get beat by Georgia. And then in the Louisville series, we don't mention this enough, but that thing really works in 4 and 5 year increments, right? Like it swings wildly back and forth. There's not really a lot of close games. it just goes one way or the other. And once one team wins, it kind of starts going the other direction. I've thought Scott Satterfield's a joke of a coach for the longest time, but their defense is going to blitz the ever-loving snot out of Kentucky, right? They're just going to be bringing dudes all day, and you
They're gonna
should
play.
have answers. But, like, you can see the scenario where they get the win, and then the pendulum is just going back in the wrong direction.
They're playing three defenses that play the same way here to close the season. Take out Georgia. Tennessee, Missouri, Louisville are going to play man coverage, and they're coming downhill. And they're just going to try to create negative plays. They don't care. So, like, Kentucky's going to have to – they're going to play the same defense. Like, the defense they just saw at Tennessee, they're going to see again. And if they come out with the same god-awful plan, they're going to get their ass kicked. And so we're just going to have to see what he can kind of scheme up here. Like, Will Levis needs to look like Will Levis again to me, number one. Like, if we get through this year and we look up and he's got 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and just ho-hum numbers, like, you ruined that kid. Like, you ruined that kid's, like, what should have been his big season. Like, because you couldn't create, and your offense couldn't create easy enough stuff for him. Scoring points is going to be big for me here this last couple weeks. I don't want, like, if you're out there scoring 21 points a game, like, that's just not good enough. Kentucky's got to get out of that. They're going to have to start scoring points. Like, it's just the bottom line. Like, Tennessee and Heupel, as long as Josh Heupel's there, you're going to have to score 38 points to beat him. There's really no getting around it.
Yeah.
You've got to start scoring points. Like, it's a program. They just have to get out of this winning games in the mud. Like,
yeah.
Well, you want to, you know, what's good about they can win games in the mud, but you can't always depend on it. You're going to have to win where you're going to have to score points in some shootout type games to win. So that's what I want to see. And then, like, the sloppiness, right? That stuff's got to get out of there. If we're still in these big, like, they're going to play two big games, really, and I'm not talking about the Georgia game. I'm talking about this Saturday against Missouri and against Louisville. If we're getting in there where there's key procedure penalties, like, no one's really talking about, like, that false start on 3rd and 6 before the short punt, before the touchdown, before half. It's 26. If they don't have the false start, 3rd and 6 is a lot easier to get than 3rd and 11. They were awful on Saturday, but they've typically been a good third down team throughout the year. They probably get that third down, and it changes everything. But that was just kind of another evidence of just penalties. We talk about Ole Miss. Like, critical procedure penalties are killing them.
Yep.
The Ole Miss one, you get that one, and then you get backed up and you get sacked. So that's the sloppiness in general has got to get fixed. Will Levis needs to look like Will Levis. In the beginning of these games, Nick, like I've always said it. I judge an offensive play caller a lot about, like, his opening game plan in his script, and you should be able to put something together and have success early in these games. And they absolutely stink starting these games.
They've only had 2 scores on first possessions this year. Last year they had 7.
Yeah, and those are against G5 teams.
Yeah.
You come out against Florida, 3 and out. You come out against Ole Miss. You get backed up. You get a first down, but then you fall behind the chains. Will Levis takes a big sack on your first real drop back situation of the game. Come out South Carolina. You run a gadget play on your opening script, which I think just set the tone of that game. You were not winning it after that happened. And then, let's see here. Mississippi State, you fumble. You get in 3rd and long. You convert a 3rd and long, and you fumble. And then Tennessee. You come out, you're down 7-0. The crowd's going nuts. Last thing you need is a 3 and out there, and you go 3 and out. It's like you got to be better than that. Like, if they come out here and there's 3 and out city here to start this game and the Louisville game, it's not going to be good. I think for a team confidence wise, they have to have success early to get some positivity, get some momentum on that sideline. So. I mentioned it after the game, kind of a 4-game tryout here, and I think Stoops kind of proved my point on Monday with that comment he made. So we're gonna have to see what he has here these last 4 games.
Yeah, and I think what's important too, you talk about giving that sideline some confidence. The players got to be wondering too now, right? Like, am I being put in a position to succeed?
Yeah.
But the stuff that Ryan Lemon was saying about Tennessee players knowing where the play was going, all that stuff, like, that happens in every game. That, like, players.
It feels I feel like I'm in 2020. They know what they know. Go ahead.
But like, it's one thing if the other team has scouted you and kind of knows where the ball is going. Like Keidron Smith's pick six against Florida. He said after the game, we just watched film, we knew where it was going. Like teams are good enough at doing
Right.
that. But what's worrisome though is that the players are so ticked off about it that that's like they're sharing their grievances, right? Like they're airing out their grievances about their coach right now. That's the part that worries me
Mm-hmm.
because you got a lot of that in the Shannon Dawson era. A lot of the like you got a lot of that in the DJ Elliott era too, where the guys didn't necessarily respect or trust that the coach would put them in a position to succeed. Rich has got to get them feeling confident back on the football field again so they can make some plays.
Yeah, I just feel like it's like 2020 again. They can't beat press man coverage.
Which you should be able to with these receivers.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of that's on like to me, it's just scheme. Like you got to scheme these guys open. Like you have the quarterback that can make these throws. Like it shouldn't be like blanketed. Like I just
Pick pass, yeah, just
yeah. And then everything takes forever. Like it just or everything's just hard. It shouldn't be this hard. That's really the frustrating part. That it feels like it's like we're gonna see the game plans we saw in 2020, where they're just gonna press man coverage. They're gonna stuff. They're gonna crank the box up, play downhill, stop Rodriguez, and then they don't think you can beat them on the outside. And that's like if you can't beat that on an offense, something's got to change. You got to be able to beat that.
Yeah. It's been hard watching this offense at times. That's why I'm relying on Port Royal Plants and this high quality pain relief balm. Visit them at portroyalplants.com. All organic, CBD, Kentucky proud products. If you're out and about too, like I'm about to be raking leaves later, and I know a lot of the bugs are dead, but you still, my wife, she could go into a freezer and get bit by 4 mosquitoes. Try out their organic CBD base flea tick mosquito. No, not flea tick. Flea and ticks for dogs. We don't need flea stuff. We need mosquito repellent. They've got that at Port Royal Plants, based in Henry County. Give them a try today at portroyalplants.com. Luckett Tuesday was my first time going to Lexington in a long time, and I threw some on the back before getting in the car. And man, it's not like getting a back massage, but it is. It really just like okay, this drive's going back much easier. My way home wasn't as pleasant though because I got the text from my wife. There's poop everywhere, so that's what you don't want to get. That's the message you don't want to receive. But the house didn't burn down. We're getting back. We're rocking. We're rolling. Would be a lot easier on my wife though. We got back-to-back nooners, 11 a.m. local kickoff time. Make things a lot easier if Kentucky did come out and score some points against Missouri, who it's weird. Like I don't want to be too nice to Missouri because they suck in close games. Like that Auburn loss is one of the worst football losses I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like people who say like teams just don't lose the way Kentucky lose. We're the most snake bit fan base. Blah blah blah. No, dude, watch Missouri. Like they have so many of these losses, especially this year. That Auburn game. They have an former All SEC kicker miss a chip shot to win. Then they fumble it into the end zone in overtime. Could have been an easy touchdown, and dude just gets stripped at the 1 foot line. And then the week later, they actually got up off the mat, had Georgia on the ropes. They're on 4th and inches at their 3rd and 2nd, whatever. They're goal to go, and they get a false start at the 1-inch line. Backs them up. They kick a field goal. Georgia gets friendly whistles the rest of the way and ends up winning that football game. They didn't score a touchdown until the 4th quarter. So it's kind of funny though. Like both teams are kind of similar. Like it's kind of Spider-Man meme, like especially with Luther Burden, their talented receiver, and you got Barry Brown, Dane Key. Like, hey, get these guys the ball. Like there's a lot of similar themes with both of these teams, but the Missouri offense has been much worse on a consistent basis than Kentucky's.
Yeah, both these defenses are kind of have a legit top 15 case defense wise. I mean, they're both been pretty good. Both defensive coordinators are doing an outstanding job, and then offensively, it's holding both teams back. Missouri, Brady Cook's a new starter at quarterback. He's had a lot of struggles this year. They're young at wide receiver. They don't really have that offensive line issues. They're playing 2 transfers at running back. Both are just kind of blah, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about this game, Nick, like Kentucky's offense is better than Missouri's. Like Missouri's, I think you can make the case it's the worst offense in the SEC. I mean, it's pretty. They're not like downright terrible as we've seen some like Vanderbilt offenses in the past or some Kentucky offenses back in the day when Kentucky was bottom of the league. But they are not very good on offense.
They're like just hoping to pop a few plays here and there.
Dominic Lovett is the one to watch. Number 7, sophomore receiver. He's really their whole offense. When they're, I believe they scored like 13 of their points against South Carolina. They all came from Lovett just popping a 40-yard, 50-yard reception and getting them in the scoring territory. He's the guy you got to stop. You cannot let him get deep. When they tied the game for Auburn, or when they set up the game when he scored, they threw a go ball to Lovett, and he made a great catch on the sideline. So, like, he's the guy you cannot let get loose. But Kentucky is better on offense. Like, they have a better running back. They have a better running game. They have a better quarterback. They have a better passing game. Like, they should, if the defenses play at an even amount, Kentucky should have the advantage in this game because they have the better offense. But we know the Kentucky's issues. Turnovers have been bad. Can't finish drives in the red zone. Create scoring opportunities, but can't finish them. That's why I think the start of this game is so important. Because if you go back 2 years ago in this game at Missouri, like we saw a game like we're going to see on Saturday, right? Just the ultimate slugfest.
Yep.
But Missouri controlled the tempo and tenor of that game because they got off the field on third downs on defense, and they just churned out drives. I believe they were like 15 to 25 on third and fourth down on offense. They really didn't have a great day on offense, but they just were able to keep the chains moving and just won the ultimate in the mud slugfest. I think you're going to potentially play out. And so I think whoever gets the lead early in this game, like whoever scores the first touchdown is going to have a pretty big advantage here. And so, like, the start's huge. Like, if Kentucky comes out here, and has to fill themselves out in the first 4 possessions of a game again, before they figure out what they want to do on offense, I think they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and to your point, the one thing that I will, like, you all know how fired up Eli Drinkwitz gets me. I mean, he's just he off the field, that dude just really knows how to push all the right buttons to fire me up. But on the field, I do respect him as a play caller. And, like, if I'm going to give them one advantage offensively, this dude knows how to bring teams down to his level. Like, they don't have the overwhelming talent, but in that game, I think they were combined 14 of 25 on
14
third
of 25,
down.
and
it was just and it was because they were in like 3rd and 3s.
Yep.
And they would give it to the running back Roundtree. Yeah. Like, it was all very manageable situations. Drink is a good play caller at when it comes to knowing the time to hit your shots and also keeping things manageable for below average quarterbacks. So that part worries me a little bit. Also, I don't know how this is the case because their kicker is wildly inconsistent. I saw him miss. Was it South Carolina? He had a bad miss, or I don't know.
Yes, he missed a chip shot against South Carolina.
Yeah. He's kind of all over the place. But I think SP Plus has them at 3rd in special teams efficiency.
Yeah, but he's like 7 to 9 on 40-plus yard attempts. I think he's got 5 makes from 50-plus yards.
Yeah, he can hit bombs, but he just.
He's an NFL kicker. I mean, like, as soon as they get cross midfield, they're about in his range. So that's another concern in this game, Nick.
Yeah.
I believe Matt and them reported that maybe there might be a special teams kicking change for Kentucky today on the show. I believe I saw that somewhere.
Okay. Kind of hinted at that.
Yeah. So, Missouri's going to have the kicking game advantage, but they have given up some punt returns, so that could maybe be an area Kentucky could get them, if they could pop a punt return. But, yeah, how do you feel confident in Kentucky's kicking game, right?
No,
and in a slugfest type game, field position, like Missouri stunk at field position too. You're very much right on the Spider-Man meme. Like, these teams got a lot in common.
We bring up the Twitter account is at StatsOwar. It's he runs something called CFB Graphs, and it's just an easy to consume advanced stats graphic for every game, and it is so funny. Look at how he uses blue and red, like good, bad, and oh my God, it is like a mirror image of one another. It is so so funny. They're each projected 20.9 points, right? Like it's about as 50-50 toss-up as it comes, and they're terrible at field position. The net field position, Kentucky ranks 97
Yeah.
in the country.
To
That's
me,
that's so bad. Like they're not even getting first downs
mhm.
to help the defense and even flip the field, right? Like there's none of that. Like you're not even getting those drives where you're like, well, they didn't score, but at least they gave the defense a chance there, because that's what happened in 2018, right? Like you went down there, your offense stunk it up. You had Danny Clark at quarterback fumbling the football, but at least like the offense would make sure that the defense was getting Drew Lock back around the 20-yard line, right, before they were locking him up. And man, we're bringing up these games, and Luckettt is as much as on our side, and since Mark Stoops' ascendant, since what, like 2016, Missouri, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky's controlled those 3 series. Up until this year, they only had 2 total losses between those 3 teams combined in like 21 games. So you lose to South Carolina this year. Those games against Missouri have been closer than we'd like to think, but UK has found a way to win close games. They got to keep doing it here, or else the pecking order that you're at, right? Like Stoops showed them the ACC leaderboard, was like, hey, we're still in the mix of it. Well, you got to win this one, or you're not going to be in the mix much longer.
Yeah, you have to go back to 2015 since they lost to 2 of those 3: Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Missouri. Yeah. That one was you beat South Carolina early. You lose to a good Missouri team, or you won. No, you have to go back to 2014 because they beat Missouri and South Carolina in 2015. 2014.
Well, they lost to Vandy in 15 though.
No, you have to go. Oh, I'm even dating 2013. You have to go back to the first. I keep dating myself, but the first Mark Stoops year, because 2014 they beat South Carolina.
Yeah,
that was the big win, and then they beat Vandy at home, and then 2015 they beat Missouri and South Carolina, and then lost to Vandy on the road. So you have to go back to 2013, Nick, since they've lost to 2 or 3 here.
That would be bad. That would be really bad.
I mean, there's just a lot right on it.
It could be like, and that's why there's so much fear factor in this, because like it is such a must win. I cannot stress it enough.
It is like for this thing, need to get things back on track this season. Like, but no matter what happens here, this year is going to be a disappointment because they didn't take advantage of opportunities on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And they let the offense slip from a top 25 unit to this girls' football we're watching every Saturday.
It really just happened in the month of October, right? Like,
well, yeah, yes, but I think you wrote it today, and you made a good point. It was always like benefit of the doubt. Oh, they're missing this, they're missing that, this, that, and then we get 6-7 games, and people just get tired of making excuses for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got enough personnel there. You should be able to not asking them to go score 40 points, but you should be able to go put some points on the board. It shouldn't be this difficult in the year of our Lord 2022 to score more than 30 points in a college football game. But it is. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like you want to try to win game set. Like, my thing that irked me about that Tennessee game, Nick, it's almost like they went in there and thought they were going to go in 24-21. And like, that is not the way to go play that game. Early in the game, you should be taking, if Tennessee's going to hit you with a haymaker, you should be trying to hit them with a haymaker. Like, that's the time to throw a bomb when they're playing downhill. Like, when they went to Louisville and played Lamar Jackson and won that game, they did not go into that game thinking they were going to win 24-21. They thought, if we're going to win, we're going to score these guys today. And we're going to take our swings here. And I just didn't feel like they did that down in Tennessee. And that was frustrating.
That's a great point.
Because you do have to do what you do. The best thing they do is give the ball in 24's belly and let him run. But you got to help him out. He can't do it by himself. If you got a team that's going to play that damn aggressive, you need to take advantage of that aggressiveness early and say, if you're coming down here, I'm going to throw it over the top of your head. And Kentucky just didn't do that. They played right into Tennessee's hands. And that was really upsetting about that game to me. And so Missouri's kind of the same thing. If Missouri comes out here and is rolling 9 into the box, you need to throw it over their head. You need to figure out something, move the pocket, do something where you can where Levis can show off his arm, and you can take advantage of some of the speed you have on the outside in one-on-one matchups and take your shot. But yeah, that was to me, that was frustrating part. And I think them as a whole, they just got to get out of that 17-13 mindset sometimes. Not all the time, but you can't, there's time to be conservative and there's time to be aggressive. Felt like early in that Tennessee game was a time to be aggressive, and they just weren't. And that was upsetting.
To be fair, and in the midst of all of our worries, Mark Stoops teams are pretty good in bounce back spots, especially late in the season. 2018, I don't have them all pulled up, but I did do some quick research. Tennessee and Georgia are the only teams. I threw out 2020, but they Tennessee in 2019 at the goal line. That was kicked off November. That was their only loss in the final 5 games of the season. Same thing happened. They were able to get off the mat and win at Vanderbilt. They had beaten Missouri at home before that. Same thing last year. You win 3 straight to close out the season. 2018, I believe, even after that Georgia loss, like they cleaned. No.
Lost to Tennessee.
Tennessee, and then you won out, right?
And then beat a good Middle Tennessee team, and then smoke Louisville, and then go and win the bowl game.
Yeah. That was a good Middle Tennessee team. They've been pretty good about in these bounce back spots. I just
gotta see. I mean, this offense is just, we might look back at it, and Tennessee just might be,
Yeah.
Second or third best team in the country. You played them at their house. Yeah, they had everything cooking.
But the problem
is the game just went sideways on you early, and you just, once that happened, you were toast.
For me, it's just there were some common themes that just raised their head, and it's
the same issues, right?
Yeah, it's the start, and it's the red zone, and just overall sloppiness. A lot of sloppiness, and that's. I know some execution errors are up to the players, right? Like, you can't get mad at the coach for Tavion Robinson dropping a pass.
Right.
But, if there's no accountability for a kid jumping off sides all the time, then, what do we, what do we?
Yeah, I mean, I feel him on the O-line
stuff. It's got to come down to the coach eventually.
I feel him on the O-line stuff because there is, typically the rule is false start, you come out of the game kind of thing. But there's just no one, they just don't have depth. But yeah, I mean, my thing with that is you can get mad at the players or whatever, but eventually to me, that's just on the coaching. Why do they keep jumping? Why is it taking so long for these play calls to get in?
Yeah.
Why are you calling in why is the wrong play getting called in? Your quarterback gets crushed against Mississippi State, hurts his shoulder.
Yeah.
Why is he hearing, how's that wristband call getting messed up? We all just kind of laugh that off, but that's kind of seems like that's been an issue all season, getting play calls in. And you almost knocked him out for the year because you got the wrong call in.
Right, right.
When I say sloppy football team, it's not just the players jumping off sides. I think it's the whole operation that's sloppy. I think there's signs that prove that. And so why is that? Does somebody need to go in the box, Nick? All these coaches are on the sideline. Do we need more? Somebody need to just go up there and thinking peace and quiet? I mean, I don't know, something, because it's been sloppy, and that's what I'll get back to. If we still see some of these sloppiness over these last 4 games, because it's not this search came down to Rich Gangarella and Rob Calabrese, the Jets quarterback coach.
Yeah,
the Jets quarterback coach didn't have any experience, and that was probably the number one reason Scangarello got this job.
Yep. But it's not looking like the experience.
Right. You should be this is what the first time play caller should be going through. Not what this guy who's called plays. He's been called plays at 4 different organizations in his career. Called plays in the NFL. This is not what it should look like to me. That's just got to get fixed. There's really no excuse for
it. You brought up we were talking about false starts and not being able to take guys out, and I thought of a name I hadn't thought of in a long time. Jordan Swindle.
Yeah.
What's Jordan Swindle up to nowadays?
He played in the Canadian Football League for a long time.
Good for him, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Really, really. Look, speaking of some of these guys who are surprising, you notice how much Marquand McCall's playing for the Panthers? He's getting a ton of reps, man.
That was a good team for him to get on because they got into the fire sale type situation, but it's giving him a good chance to
put some shape out there.
Right. So a good opportunity for him.
That game on Sunday, I think I brought it up on the football podcast. Still blows my mind how crazy that game got. And Zadarius Smith is just freaking
Stud.
I just forget about the Vikings. I don't know what it is about them that I just don't pay it. I'm not pay attention to them, but it just feels like in the pecking order of
It's
caring.
just because they got Kirk Cousins, so you just like, oh, they stink. Kirk Cousins is their quarterback.
It really is like such a Kirk Cousins bias. But like I even have Justin Jefferson on a fantasy team, and I keep up from afar, and I still
They're
don't
good.
care about the Vikings. But yeah,
They're good.
they're good. The Packers stink. What's up with your team, man?
I don't know, man. A bunch of
What
stuff.
is it? Is it really just
Browns are? I knew that. I had a kind of feeling they were going to lose that game because the Browns they just a terrible matchup because they can't block Myles Garrett and they can't stop the run. Specifically, that they got their DJ Reader, their best run stuffer, was out. So I had a feeling that was coming.
I didn't know if it was a case where it's like really just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase or just the entire they're the city of Cincinnati. Like
Well,
they just own it.
Jamar Chase is pretty good, but still, I mean, they just can't figure out the Browns. Like Baker Mayfield would throw it all over them when he was there, and they wouldn't. Like Jacoby Brissett had the game of his career. That did not surprise me. They kind of have their number. I'm ready for Stefanski to get out of there because they just cannot figure them out.
It's such a weird thing to say out loud.
It is. It's just the one opponent. They just cannot. They always don't play well against. It feels like they just don't match up well with them at all. They just have all kinds of. I mean, the Bengals just got injuries are really starting to pile up on. Not to make an excuse, but that's hurting them. It's looking like to win games, they're really going to have to get in shootouts, and then that just can they protect Burrow long enough, and they got to get Chase back. Got the Panthers this week, so I think they'll be able to bounce back, but that's just kind of the team they're going to be this year.
We are entering that wonderful time of year where football is on 7 days a week, and it's glorious. The MAC is back. Did you catch any of the action on Tuesday night?
I did. I was wanting to watch that Buffalo-Ohio game for a little bit because that was kind of first place on that side of the division. Those are two of the best teams.
It got a little hairy, though. A lot of hand.
Ball
State, Kent State, it was foggy, and you had some, of course, quarterbacks, you idiots, quit sliding. Like the dude was near the first down, it's fourth down, and instead of doing the dive, he starts his slide because like he easily had the first down, but he slid to it, so they're going to back you up like a yard from where the slide starts, and so he didn't get. Kent State doesn't get the first down. That team, they've played every good football team in America this year for pay games. Could have used a win.
Here's the funny thing about the MAC. All right, the last three champs, Northern Illinois, Ball State, and Miami, Ohio, all those coaches are still there. They all have losing records. And not close losing records. I'm talking like 10, 15 games under 500. That league, you can just go from 3-9 to 9-3 like snap of the finger. Like Buffalo stunk last year. Now they might win they had a chance to win the league. Ohio stunk last year. New coach first year. Now they might come back and win the MAC. And Frank Zolich was awesome there for 15 years, and he never won the MAC. So that league is just like it's very much a lottery. You never know who could win it. It's usually someone out of left field a little bit. So and then playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays obviously makes that a little more. Feels like the results could go in either way on any of those games.
I like when Post put the kids down to bed and it's like, all right, let's check the scores here, and if it's close, then you're like, all right, let's get weird. There was one play where a dude threw a ball, it went back to him, and then he threw it again. So he tried to throw two passes in one play. You cannot throw two forward passes in one play. It's like the most MAC play that's ever happened. Oh, freaking action.
Shout out Ball State. They were recruiting Kentucky pretty hard. Tristan Cook, kid from Woodford County, is going there. I believe another kid's going there. And then Joe Humphrey, so it should be – actually, I don't know. He's probably Miami, Ohio third quarterback. I know he set a bunch of records at Davies County, so he'll be starting for them, I would think, eventually down the road.
Yeah. Muncie, not too far of a drive. Love some good MAC. Maybe one year we get some action, and I actually have one of my wife's good friend is marrying somebody who's a big MAC football guy, and he's done a couple random Tuesday nights. The best part about MACtion for us would be, you can go in and out of the stadium. It's old school Kentucky football where you're grabbing a couple beers at halftime. Um, so, yeah, I'm love a little Tuesday night action. Luckett, I guess we should get back to our discussion on this Missouri-Kentucky game. Do you ultimately have a lean one way or the other?
No, I think
Yeah.
I've had different points this week. I've had both sides winning,
I,
but regardless, it's kind of a close game.
I got
That's
the
how I see
under.
it playing out.
I bet the under today. This has Roush under written all over it.
Yeah.
I'm such a loser. I love unders. Iowa did it to me. I blame it all on the Ferentz family. But now, like I just don't bet overs. It's only unders. It's just like, ooh, these teams stink. Let's bet it.
These two teams are combined 14-2 on underplays this year.
Yeah.
The two losses were to group of 5 teams. Bad group of 5 teams at that. Yeah, I mean, it'll be the lowest total for each team right here at 41.5. But yeah, how do you go to the window and say, give me over in Kentucky, Missouri? I mean, these two good defenses, offenses that have just stunk, and they both play at a slow pace. Like, how do you just go and be like, yeah, this thing's going over?
Well, one thing that would be nice too that we haven't seen a lot of from Kentucky, we saw it early on in the season, creating turnovers. That defense has been bend not break, but they've only created 8 all season. They're ranked 10th or 11th.
Yeah, I mean, you look up and turnovers is again an issue for the second year in a row.
Yeah,
the defense is not for the defense. I think they're 118th in turnover margin, but the defense is 108th in takeaways. Like the offense needs to be better, but they need more from their defense in that aspect. It's hard to ask that defense to do anymore, but you do need some more takeaways.
Well, because like you got to have some sort of havoc stat, and they're not getting sacks, so there's just not a whole lot of havoc stats right now for this Kentucky defense. Which we had an interesting question on our text line today on Kentucky Roll Call, and it was who's on your Mark Stoops short list if things get sideways, he decides to bolt, get the big pile of nil money at Auburn or Nebraska or somewhere, and my wild card, I've got a fun wild card. Let's bring Zach Arnett up here and run that 3-3-5 and just piss off other teams.
Yeah. I wouldn't. That's kind of the mold I would look for, though, if I'm like Kentucky. Like, I do like the defensive coordinator angle. I would prefer like Arnett be more like kind of a big school. He hadn't been in the Power 5 very long. That would be my big concern. Like, he's only been a couple years at Mississippi State. And like the rest of the Power 5 is a lot different than Mississippi State. Obviously.
Yeah, that's true. But the guy, the Lincoln Riley's DC.
He was Alex Grinch 2 years ago. He was.
I want to call him Steak.
2 years ago, he was definitely on my list, but the defenses have just not. They just haven't kicked that extra gear. They force turnovers, take a lot of chances, but I don't know if I would be too excited about him right now. But yeah, he's definitely a guy maybe you would talk to. He's from Ohio. And so
that's intriguing. Who else? Obviously, Brad White's on there. Who else is on Adam Luckett's?
I mean, how do you not have John Summerall on there?
It's true. Yeah.
What he's doing right now.
Dude, yeah, they're kicking ass in the Fun Belt, man.
And Nick, like, if Summerall could possibly keep White here.
Right.
Like, those dudes are pretty tight.
It would be kind of weird to go from working for him to he's working for you, right?
Yeah, but from what I kind of you probably know more about this, but those two seem like they're pretty tight.
Yeah. Right now, Troy is 6-2, bowl eligible, 4-1, leading their division in the Sun Belt.
Yeah,
they would be unbeaten if not for that Hail Mary against App State.
And you want to talk about getting NIL in order and going out and getting ball players?
It's true.
That guy will fix all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they will get players here if he's running the show. You want to talk about a head coach that's going to go out and get after it recruiting wise, and do what it's got to take to get play. Like, Summerall will put him in that bucket. For him, like, and he's not as young as he's 41 years old. It's not like he's a young pup.
God, it's so weird because he, played on the teams that when we were kids growing up watching, and now it's like, oh, he's not a young pup anymore. And it's like, wait, I was watching him play. Like, damn it, I'm old.
Yeah. So he's on the short list. Like, he needs to get an interview, and like he would have familiarity with. Another thing with Summerall, he's he played for the coach and he worked for the coach. The two coaches that I think prove the model of how you win here at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
with Rich Brooks and Mark Stoops, and I think he was a GA for Brooks too. So
yeah,
I think that's another pro in his pros and cons list. Offense style and all that. That's the one thing I would have questions about him with. It's a risk because he's still a little green as a head coach, but I think there's a lot of things to like about him. And then he's winning big at Troy right away. I think that's a good sign, and that's a good tough league. Like there's good coaches in that league, and so that's impressive to me. So yeah, he would definitely be on there. Brian Hartline up at Ohio State.
Yeah,
most of the reasons I just talked about. You want a head coach that's going to come and get players here and probably get NIL figured out.
Is everybody wants to talk about Coach Prime, but the real fun wrinkle in the coaching carousel is where's Brian Hartline going next?
Yeah, so he's definitely on there, and then,
he's like they're fickle basically from 8 years ago.
And then Brad White, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Those three right there are towards the top. And then after that, you're getting into I would say secondary candidates, at least on my list after those three. Some people have thrown out Neil Brown and all that. Maybe he would be offensive coordinator. It's the thing with Neil, he's going to get fired probably from West Virginia here soon, if not this year, next year. His play calling didn't go great at Troy or West Virginia. You can pull up the numbers if you want to, but it just was not very good. He had to he brought in Graham Harrell this year to call plays, and he probably did it about 2 years too late.
Yep.
And so that's the one thing with Neil, I would say.
It would also be a really weird. I don't want to say it was square peg when they first initially got him, but it felt kind of foisted on Mark Stoops. He had to go get Neil.
Yeah, but Stoops wanted to run the air raid, and he was one of the best candidates at the time if you were going to do that. So it was maybe a arranged marriage type thing, but it made sense.
We do have a weird relationship with Neil Brown, though. It's just it.
Yeah, some people have mentioned or I've been mentioned to me. I think Derek Terry mentioned Neil Brown coming to be Summerall's OC here potentially.
Well, they worked together to make that Norman offensive line room, which that's
there. I don't know if I would want that, but if I don't know what Neil Brown wants to do, but I think he would be awesome in kind of a chief of staff role or just kind of a big picture role on a college staff.
It's true, yeah.
But you'd have to think he wants to get back in the fight and run a show himself. So I don't know at this stage in his career if that's something he would be looking for. But Summerall, the closer we get, it adds up. But with that said, I don't think Stoops is going anywhere unless it's Nebraska and Iowa are the two I'm watching right now. If he's going to leave, it's going to be one of those two. And so pay attention to that Nebraska search and then pay attention to what's going on with Ferentz. I think I was listening to Bruce Feldman's podcast the other day, and he mentioned, I think he was him, that Brian Ferentz he's looked around for NFL jobs.
Yeah, that's been the
and then that's the thought that he's going to go to get an NFL assistant coach job, and then Kirk's going to go hire a new offensive coordinator. So it doesn't sound like he's leaving anytime soon if he's going to do that. So that to me, if that happens, you got to think at least 2 to 3 more years with Ferentz there at Iowa, and so that's a win for Kentucky if that happens. It's
just so funny. Their uniforms look like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they really do operate like them, right?
Maybe they'll go hire Matt Canada. Just full circle.
We're not firing coaches.
Yeah, God, maybe they'll hire Matt Canada, and Tomlin will hire Brian Ferentz.
How the hell is Matt Canada still employed? My God, that dude stinks. He's so bad. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun today. Even though I feel like we were a little bit more. I don't know if complaining is the right word, but I feel like this was good. This is good exercise.
Yeah, I've turned up the heat a little bit this week, obviously. But Nick, we talked in personal conversations. I've been a little irked with this offense for a few weeks now, and I don't think I'm the only one. I think the fan base in general, and you've given them time, and it's just time's up.
It's November.
Yeah,
it's November.
It needs to be. It needs to be better. Offense kind of costed the team a win against Ole Miss. South Carolina was a tough situation, but to me, you got to be able to score more than you did, and you put your team in a huge hole because you give them 7 points to start the game. It just needs to be better. And so you go down to Tennessee, you only score 6 points. That's embarrassing. I mean, bluntly, Stoops made a change to avoid moments like that on
Yeah.
offense, to avoid the moments where big stage where his offense just couldn't do anything, and that's what happened against Tennessee. The offense could not do anything, and it's just not acceptable. So it's got to get fixed. And if it doesn't get fixed, if we see the same old these last 4 games, I think some tough decisions are rightfully going to have to be made, because this is just what we've seen. It just should not be happening. It's not what Kentucky signed up for when they made this hire.
The thing is too is in July we thought this Kentucky team was going to have to score points to win. We thought this was going to have to be a 35, 38-point team because the defense wasn't going to cut it. No, defense has been good. They haven't asked you to do a ton. You've got to be just a slightly average.
Yeah, we're not asking for a lot here. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It shouldn't be that hard to go score 28 points, but it is. This offense has had all kinds of issues. Want to talk about points per drive? Well, your points per drive stats stink this year. I mean, like the end of the day, you gotta go score, and you gotta figure out like easy ways for your team to operate. It seems like everything's very hard. It's been very hard for them all year. And so I think this game is important. I think the start on Saturday is critical, and it's a game that feels like which team makes the first big, huge mistake in the second half is probably going to lose.
Yeah, score early, don't make the big mistake, and you can get yourself a must-win for the Cats at Como.
You score early, then you can that's when you can really have Chris Rodriguez and hammer the rock and kind of play ball control, kind of play how you want to play. But if you don't, you get in a hole. Then the defense is going to be looking at you. Are you going to get us out of this hole? Are you just going to mess around? And then that's when you get in obvious passing situations, and we know what happens in obvious passing situations with this team. So, yeah, big game for this group. We'll see if they can bounce back and see if they can have some success against a pretty good defense there in Missouri.
Final road game of the season, 11 a.m. local kickoff. Luckett, enjoy Harpo's Friday night. It's where all the big J's, I'm sure, go before they become big J's.
Do they have a visitor section press box at Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're at one end and the home team's at the other.
Okay.
Yeah. It's nothing too crazy like that.
Do you want me to steal you a rock and bring it back?
Oh, would love a rock. would absolutely love a rock. I got my car. Like, you might want to pin where you park too. In 18, I went to two wrong parking garages before I finally found my car, so that was rough. But that Harpo's, that's a good place. It's like their Tukey's. They got a lot of good eats there in Columbia too. So
yeah,
I think you'll have a nice Friday night. Or is it just Friday night and coming back, or you two
whole weekend, Friday, Sunday?
Oh, beautiful then. Beautiful.
That's a longer drive than I thought it was going to be.
It's like an hour longer than you think. It's kind of a pain in the ass. You're doing it right. Just a lot of cold Bud Lights at Harpo's after the game. So enjoy it with Peak. And we'll be back next week for a lot more content everywhere you get your content. And enjoy your CBD, full spectrum CBD from PortRoyalPlants.com. For Adam Luckettt, I'm Nick Roush. Let's win some money on the Breeders' Cup this weekend, too. I'll have some picks for you on the KSR YouTube channel. Subscribe. Stay tuned. This has been 11 Personnel.